application?
Yeah. You may want the exact wording. To rescind the notification for the 25-26 school year. Very clear that it's
This meeting is called to order. I'm going to ask for a motion to come out of exec session and come into open session. Stephanie, second by Laura Slattery. Questions or discussions? All in favor? We're now in open session. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. We're going to stand for a moment of silent meditation. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'm going to turn the meeting over to Superintendent Trombetta, okay, to present the superintendent's report, which is going to be budget discussion. There's only one other item on the agenda for formal approval. But tonight, what you're going to hear is several different options that administration has been working diligently on to try and find other areas of revenue. So I'll start over to Mr. Trombetta.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to thank the Merrimack community for last night and having us in as guests. As promised, we said that we were going to be presenting options tonight, and I'm going to have Mrs. Sarakis go through the options that we have prepared, and then it'll be given to the board for a conversation and discussion about those options.
Okay, thank you, everyone. As Mrs. Trombetta said, we are going to discuss 3 different options for reductions to help close our budget gap. Oh, thank you. So we are going to jump right in. We have option number 1. I just want to say from the start, all 3 options show the $6.5 million budget gap that we discussed at the presentation that we had last week. And we will go through various methods that we're suggesting for closing that gap.
I just want everyone to know there's smart boards on both sides on the walls as well, if you can't see from the front ones.
So option number 1, all three options have several of the items in common. So you'll see the first item for we have up here is the revised transportation limits. We're showing a savings of $1.75 million on those limits. This requires voter approval, so we will be placing a proposition number 2 on the ballot to change those limits. Currently, the limits are anything greater than a half mile, K through 12 receives transportation. And for K-8, anything under 15 miles receives transportation. And for 9 through 12, it's anything under 25 miles receives transportation. The proposition will be to change the K through 8 limit to be anything over a mile will receive transportation. 9 through 12 will be any distance greater than a mile and a half will receive transportation. And both for K through 12 will be anything under 15 miles. That will be the change. The state limits are K through 8. The minimum for transportation is 2 miles with a maximum of 15 miles. And for 9 through 12, it's a minimum of 3 miles with a maximum of 15 miles. So we're looking to do half of the state limit for K through 12.
I'm going to stop you there. Michelle, do you just explain how that impacts our Sachem families and our Sachem communities? Reducing that mileage, how is that going to impact busing for?
Reducing the 9 through 12, you're talking
Yes,
from
yes.
15 to 25 miles. That would eliminate the transportation for 2 of our private parochial schools, St. John the Baptist in West Islip and St. Anthony's in Huntington would be in excess of that mileage.
So that would have to be approved by community vote.
Community vote, simple majority, 50% plus 1 vote.
And how many
Okay.
kids is that?
Oh, off the top, I'd have to get that for you. I can have that for the
It was in the Friday's packet. I can't remember the exact number. Was that like 250 students?
That's our
That would be.
total parochial, private and parochial transportation. I don't have the St. Anthony's. I could get that for you.
And St. John's.
And St. John the Baptist, yes. Okay. The next item is to eliminate the late buses. That would be a savings of $740,000. Increasing the class size at the elementary level, that would eliminate 8 FTEs. So that would
Once again,
be
Michelle, I'm going to stop you.
okay. Yeah,
because,
no,
like I
that's
said,
fine.
This is the first time a lot of the community seeing this.
Okay.
Once again, the impact, late buses would be for middle school. So
That-
there would be
yes.
no late buses at the middle schools for clubs and things like that.
Correct.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Yes. The next item is increasing the elementary class size by 2. That would eliminate 8 FTE or 8 staff members. We're looking to excess or attrition 3 social workers because we do have some retirements in this current year. We are looking to access 8 secondary teachers. We have reduced our materials and supplies budget district-wide by 25%. We are looking to utilize roving chaperones at our middle school sporting events. That would be a savings of $15,000. I'm sorry, supplies would be a savings of $586,000 for those who can't see the smart board. We would utilize security at our high school sporting events instead of using all chaperones. We would look to reduce chaperones at our musical events at our middle schools and our high schools. Eliminate the girls' gymnastics due to low enrollment. We would look to combine girls' swimming due to low enrollment. We would reduce off-site locations for golf and bowling from 5 days per week to 3 days per week. We would reduce invitational team participation. We would eliminate the fall JV Arrowhettes and cheerleading because the fall is not their competition season. We would look to generate some revenue by renting out our high school auditoriums for things such as dance recitals and dance competitions.
And Michelle, you're envisioning $150,000 based on previous rentals.
Correct. Correct.
Okay. And there's a big need for dance schools to.
Yes, and especially the competitions, they generate quite a bit of revenue in the springs. We have agreements with our NIS and Little Angels currently in our buildings, but we don't currently charge them rent. We have had conversations and they are willing to pay rent to the district, so we're looking to have that as a revenue source as well. And Mr. Sachs has updated his fund balance projections for the remainder of this year, and in addition to the $11 million that we were talking about to use as appropriated fund balance in our last budget presentation, we are pretty confident that we will have an additional $1 million to add to that. So in total, we're looking at additional income and or reductions of $6.5 million, which would close this budget gap in option number 1. You'll see in yellow at the bottom, we are saying that when the sale of Union Avenue does finally come through, we do want to take a portion of those funds and use that to engage a consulting firm that would work with us towards closing a building for the 26-27 school year.
And just as an update, I know, Stephanie, you asked that last meeting, an update on Union Avenue. The state has fully approved the demolition of that building.
Yes.
Which means we'll be able to go to closing very, very shortly and
Right.
and realize that money.
We have to demo that building first, and then we could go to closing. Yes.
So,
Yes.
Alex?
Just a correction, we're not demoing it. We've got an agreement with Town of Brookhaven to demo it.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. Yes.
Alex?
And just because this is everyone's first look, this will keep Merrimack open, option 1,
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
just for clarity so that everybody knows.
Yeah.
This is not in addition. This is,
Let us get through it, and then we'll answer questions that, and summarize certain things. All right.
Okay.
All right. Any other
Okay.
questions from the board on option 1?
Okay.
Okay.
So option number 2 is the same as option number 1 with the additional reduction of we have IT licenses that we built into the budget as we presented last week at the board meeting. Those were multi-year licenses. If we reduce that to a 1-year license, both for our firewall and our access points, we would see additional savings of approximately $498,000. So that is the only difference between option 1 and option 2. So any questions on option 2? Okay.
Questions on the board? That's the only difference. So just for clarification, we're going to spend more per year for 2 license agreements with the software companies.
Correct.
Uh,
Correct.
But we're going to realize $500,000 savings immediately.
Correct.
And then we could always go back to a multi-year contract at a later date.
in a later date. Correct. That is correct. Yes.
Yeah.
One thing on top of that, I'm sorry. I mean, if we can go back to those companies as well and look to renegotiate those costs, because it is a
Absolutely.
significantly different, the higher cost per year versus the 5 years. It's almost like you're paying for 3, but you're getting 2 for free. So they're really hitting us hard. So we could call those companies in and say, look, we're in a fiscal crisis right now.
Yep.
We've been with you for several years. What could you do to ease the pain a little bit?
Absolutely. I will work with Mr. Renda tomorrow on that.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm sorry. Other questions?
nobody talked about the yellow portion on the bottom of either one of the options. If we could just maybe go into that a little bit.
Sure.
Yeah.
The yellow bottoms, the yellow section there is now that we know that we have the permits in place and we can have the demolition start. We're hoping to go to close with Union Avenue. We'll be using a portion of that money to pay for professionals to come in and take a look at our district as a whole to see where the best area would be to close a building and redistrict the entire district, not one section of the district.
Okay.
I also want to point out on the reduction of staff here, when we talk about elementary and secondary, we're going to be looking to do that as much as we can through attrition with retirements.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board? Option 3.
Okay. So option 3, as the first 2 options, has the revised transportation limits. The only difference between option 3, well, the main difference from option 3 to the prior 2 is this one has the closing of an elementary school and the recognized rental income from closing an elementary school. And those items would total a savings of over $9 million. So there would be $2.5 million left that could be used to start reducing our reliance on our fund balance. So those are the 3 options that administration worked on in the past week.
Okay. Questions from the board? Okay.
I think we should remove option 3.
Yeah, good.
So
I
hold on.
didn't know.
hold on.
I didn't motion to remove
Go ahead.
a leaning. I'm sorry. I got pointed at by two people. Sorry.
So the board is presented with three options, okay? Obviously, we didn't have these options prior to last week's meeting. I know you guys worked tirelessly to come up with options that we could present. Understand that, when we talked about closing a school, we were at a deadline of March 1st. And to be honest with you, not knowing what the state aid was going to be, because I truly believe that our state aid number is not going to be our state aid number. And I don't think it's going north. I think it's going south. I wouldn't be surprised if our state aid comes back at less than what the initial runs of the state aid budget was. So with that said,
And
okay,
Rob, just real quick,
Ju-
can Michelle comment on why
Yeah.
you think that? Because they're using a different CPI number,
yeah,
which that's why we believe
Yeah.
that it's going to be lower, right?
We did receive an email today to expect less in our second runs for state aid, partially because the CPI that was used in the calculation for the governor's run at the time was 3.1%. I believe they're using a 2.9% now in that factor. So the base foundation rate per pupil is already starting at a lower number. Then when we look at the governor's run uses the estimates that we put into our ST3, which is our financial filings with the state that we do at the close of when we submit our financial statements to the state. That number for enrollment differs by our beds date by 83. It went down by 83 students. So we're already starting with 83 less students. So that could be more than a $500,000 reduction in our state aid in the legislative run.
and traditionally, the second runs of the budget usually goes up,
Mhm.
and we're potentially looking at it going down.
Correct.
Yeah. So we didn't have these options last week, which is why, in order to create a placeholder, in the event that in worst case scenario we had to close the school, okay, which is why we did that, that decision or motion that we made last week. At this particular point in time, now that the board is presented with multiple options, we have to start taking options off the table. So I'm going to ask for a leaning of the board, not a motion, as to where everybody's at with removing option number 3, which would be the reduction or closing of a school. All right, Stephanie?
Obviously, I'm
Remove it.
Yeah, remove. Please.
Alex?
Remove it.
Benny?
Remove it.
All right, I am at remove it as well.
Remove it. Removing.
All right, so option 3 would be, Michael, I'm sorry. Sorry.
Yeah, you can remove it.
Remove it. Option 3 would be removed as one of the options for the board to consider. We would need to notify State Education Department for the purposes of removing removing or rescinding the notification of the 25-26 school year to close the school. So I need a motion for that. Motion. Vinnie, second. Laura, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. All right. Now, with that said, we are clearly not out of the woods. Okay, so the fact that this is coming off this year, what I'm going to ask, and I think administration has already mentioned, is that effective immediately once this budget is passed, okay, in May, that we start the process of looking at redistricting and looking at where we could find revenue by downsizing some of our buildings. And it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be an elementary or middle school or a high school, but at least look at reducing and being able to live within what we're getting from state aid versus what we're able to tax. So is everybody okay with that? All right. Okay. So that process would start immediately after.
I will notify the state immediately tomorrow morning.
Okay. All right. Okay. Any questions on options 1 or 2? All right. Is there a leaning from the board, okay, as to option 1 or 2, where we want to go? The only difference between 1 and 2 is eliminating the multi-year agreements with our software companies. Vinny?
Yeah, I'm leaning towards option 2.
Stephanie? Alex?
I'm leaning towards option 2, but there are cuts in here that I don't understand why we would need a $500,000 surplus where we could put some stuff back.
Okay.
Like, I don't like why I'm a varsity basketball coach. You tell me I can only practice 3 times a week. I'm not going to be able to run my team effectively. And that's taking away from the kids where I don't think it's necessary when there's a surplus. So stuff like that. I think we should find out. And I don't know the number off my top of my head.
Mhm.
So you guys would have to find out. Like the kids that go to parochial school, they pay taxes here. They pay their full taxes. So to eliminate transportation for them altogether, I don't know how fair that is. they still live in our community. They're still active members of our community. They shop locally in our community. They pay taxes in our community. They should have, at minimum, transportation for the price that they're paying in taxes. So I think we should at least be looking into how much it costs before we go and say there's a $600,000 surplus. Putting certain things back plus finding out that number.
Yeah, so the only thing I say, I'm sorry, Laura, the only thing I say is we don't know what's going to happen with the second runs, the second state aid.
Right.
So I would just hold off until we get that final number, because that $596,000 might be eaten up. Am I correct?
Correct. And it's important to remember we're using an additional $1 million in fund balance here. So there is a total appropriation in this budget of $12 million.
The fund balance.
Correct.
Alex, I don't disagree with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we need a little bit more time to see what happens with the second runs of the state
Yeah,
aid.
then I can't pick until I know what.
Okay.
I have to have all the information before I go
Okay.
knee-jerk reaction.
Okay. Laura, comment?
Okay, so as a longtime board member and been here through a lot of ups and downs of Sachem, one of the things that I don't think is fair to our community more than anything else is to give something back, take it away, give it back, take it away. We need to have a sustainable budget. That means whatever revenue is coming in, that's what's going out, and that's what we have to sustain. I graduated Catholic school. I'm a St. John the Baptist graduate, even though I grew up in Sachem. My daughter went to Catholic school. Every other district complies with the state minimum for busing for Catholic schools. If you live and you send your child, if you live in a different district and you send your child to St. Anthony's, you're paying for that transportation just as you're paying tuition. Not that I disagree with you. I was one of the families that benefited, but we need to look at what we can sustain. So yes, their families here, they're making a choice to go to Catholic school for their children, same as I did, same as my parents did. That is a choice. And with that choice comes the tuition of, my nephew graduated from Chaminade. His parents paid $20,000 plus tuition, plus busing to go there. I'm saying that is a choice. So I feel for the parents and I get it, but we need to sustain a budget. We can't give and take, give and take, give and take. As far as option 1 or 2, they're both the same except for the contracts. So if we could get a better deal on the contracts, let's do it. If not, I'm going to support what administration supports out of those two. Do we need to close schools? Yes, we've needed to for a while because of enrollment, not because of budget. When I was on a facilities committee with Mr. Reynolds and Mr. Kiernan, we formed a committee due to enrollment declining. And that committee was formed to close schools. So we need to hire a consultant that's going to look at every school in our district, every property, and see what's the best way to go. So I agree with you, Alex. These cuts are terrible. But if we can't sustain it, and again, with the golf, I agree, but they're not just practicing and meeting for practice 3 times a week. They're meeting at the golf course 3 times a week, but still meeting for conditioning training with their coaches the 2 other days at the school. So yes, I agree with what you're saying, but we have to think outside the box, or you know what? Never mind closing a school, we're going to cut every program that's offered in Sachem if we don't figure out a way how to streamline some of these things and support what we provide to our students with the revenue we're collecting. And that's just my opinion. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Meredith?
I've been in favor of us getting a demographer in and figuring this out the right way, because I think far too many times we make quick decisions. We make emotional decisions. Nobody's more emotional than me, but I don't think that we've necessarily done the right thing every time. When I was not on the board, when I was on the board, I think that we have to really digest these things in a more proper manner. I'm glad that we took 3 away because I really think we need to digest it. But I also don't want the community to think that we are not closing a school, because something's got to give and everybody needs to be understanding of that. I wore my Sachem 70th anniversary shirt tonight because that's what we're about. We're 70 years, okay? 70 years that this district's been through ups and downs. And when the time comes that we have to listen to what they're saying, I don't want to hear that it's a Grundy versus Merrimack or, there's 10 elementary schools. And trust me, I've given my blood, sweat, and tears to Merrimack as a Merrimack parent, and then I was a Grundy parent. I understand that every school in this district is amazing. Our teachers are amazing. Our staff is amazing, and our children are super amazing. But you guys have to realize that it can't turn into a this school versus that school. We have to listen to the professionals because that's what they're there for. And we're going to have to make tough decisions. And some people are going to be upset, but I'm going to tell you right now, my son was in 5th grade at Grundy when we redistricted last time. And it seemed like it was going to be one of the worst things that ever happened. It was actually one of the best things that ever happened. My son he's a freshman in college right now. And one of his best friends was a kid that he never would have known if we didn't redistrict. And those boys are still together. They all are still best friends from 5th grade until now. Some of them were best friends from kindergarten, and they brought this other young man right in when he was redistricted to us. And I know it's hard. I feel everyone's pain, but we have to understand these things. We have to, as a district, come together and understand them.
Meredith, option 1 or 2?
I would lean towards 2, but we definitely have to
Yes.
make some.
Yeah.
I can't say 2 yes. We need to make some changes.
Of the 2,
Right.
the 2, you're leaning towards option 2.
I'm leaning towards 2.
Okay. Laura, option 2? Yes. Mike?
Yes, so.
All right. I'm also leaning towards option 2, and I just want to make it really clear because I know you just use an example, Grundy versus Merrimack. We don't know what's going to close. We all have different opinions. Certainly, I think, understanding what the community needs and what the community wants. Folks, how I feel about elementary schools. If you followed me for the last 10 years, you know exactly where I stand on elementary schools. I've been very vocal. It hasn't been a surprise. I didn't vote for the last closing. I voted no. I didn't believe that it was the right decision, but that's neither here or there. We have to do a full, thorough study and find out which is going to be the least impact on students, where they're still going to get their best education, their best services. With that said, I know, Laura, you talked about living within our means, and you're 100% right, but we cannot wave the white flag to the state, okay, and say, all right, we're just going to accept what you give us. We have to continue the lobby effort, and we certainly have to advocate our local officials to make sure that we're getting the same, revenue that Middle Country's getting and what Brentwood's getting. And we have school districts that are getting far more than they actually need, but yet every year we're scraping, for crumbs. So we have to continue those efforts as well through our legislative committee as well. But I'm leaning towards option 2. I'm glad that we were able to find the cuts that we needed and the revenue that we needed to be able to take that off the table.
I just want to caution us to watch the language we use because we say we're living within our means we're overspending in areas. I went line item, 150-page budget, line item by line item, and some of us challenged administration where we can cut, and we're at the bone in a lot of areas, right? We are at the bone. So we're not living above our means.
Yeah.
The issue goes back, Rob, to what you said about the state.
Yeah.
So with our legislative committee, I think there was a productive meeting, Laura, because we need to start having those advocacy conversations to increase the funding, right? I just want everybody to know, because again, living without our means we're foolishly spending, which we're not.
And
Right?
just
No,
point
I'm
of-
saying,
Again,
I didn't say living.
No, I know.
outside
No, I
our
just want,
means. I'm
yeah.
saying
Just, I'm
living
not
within-
accusing. I just want to make sure everybody understands that, line by line, some of us went through that budget line by line and challenged every line item. What's this? What's that? Right. So
And just so people understand what we can control, okay, we're controlling at what percent? 1.6?
less than 2%.
Yeah, less than 2%. And there's not a whole lot more that we can control. Certain things are outside of our control. So, Stephanie, I'm
I
sorry.
wanted to agree with Alex, but everybody got going. I agree with you. My concern and why I went with 2 is because the revised transportation limit needs voter approval.
Mhm.
So we can't bank on the fact, even though I trust the community, please, to vote for this because we're trying. And I'm going to get emotional, but this has been one of the most stressful weeks for us up here just as much as it's been for you guys. And we really need to put our faith in the community that they can help us through this really difficult time. So while I agree with Alex, I do worry that 1.75 million is out of our hands, and we need the voters to turn out and help us through this major hurdle.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mike, what was that?
No, go ahead.
Okay, so I just have to say, so when I talk about closing schools, whether it be elementary, middle, high schools, that was all done with a facilities committee, with an outside demographer, an outside facilitator, brought us together. I had no preconceived notions as to what would happen when we presented to the board. And again, that was specific due to low enrollment. When it was presented to the board at the end of our committee, the board chose not to close schools at that time because they could not close schools. I then was elected to the board and was sitting in this seat, and I was the fifth vote to close schools, which happened to be my son's elementary school gate lot, which left me devastated, and my niece and nephew's current school, Sequoia. But that was what the professionals presented. And as emotional as I was at the time, what was more important to me is all of Sachem, not just what was personal to me in Sachem. And it took a lot. Gate lot was where my son thrived, where I had teachers who I still have friends to this day, and where friends that I lost that were my PTA friends never spoke to me again. And again, as when we sit here, we have to take our emotion out of it, and what is educationally best for all our students has to be our goal at the end of the day. And as everybody said, I thought Gate Lot was the best elementary school, still do to this day. But what made it the best was the teachers, the staff, and the people in that building. And that's what makes every elementary school the best, or every middle school the best, or our high schools the best, or the people inside those buildings. Thank you.
Attorney?
Yeah, so Rob, and I'll talk to the community as well. I'm solely seeing this school district dying because I can project what's going to happen next year. Because if you listen to what Michelle says, you realize that we already have a $12 million deficit, right? So, because we're using $12 million of fund balance. 4 million of that is income that came to us that we're not expecting. So we could do all the planning in the world. We can close a middle school next year, but it's not going to stop cuts. Last year, we tried to pierce the budget, tried to pierce the cap, I should say, at 4.87. And although it had a majority support, we didn't pass it because of the tax cap law. But had it passed, our tax levy would be $6 million more than where it is right now because we had the cumulative effect of it. We wouldn't even having this discussion. We'd be right where we needed to be.
Guys, do not call out.
I'm
Do
not
not call
blaming
out.
the community.
Let the.
I'm just stating this is a
Let's say,
massive.
Attorney, just address the board.
I'm sorry.
with your
I'm
comments.
sorry. So this is a mathematical fact.
Yeah.
Okay. So we didn't pass it last year. We cut 70 staff. We cut half the high school clubs. We cut all the elementary school clubs. Right. We made reductions. We had to make reductions. Right. So those are gone. We're not talking about putting them back into the budget this year. There's no elementary clubs again. There's only half the high school clubs. Now we're talking about eliminating 8 elementary school teachers. I mean, I had a gentleman yesterday night come up and say, I guess he was a teacher in New York City. I didn't catch his name. I'm sorry. He said, please don't reduce it. Don't increase your class sizes. That it's so important. As a teacher, he recognized that. But here we are. We're going to do that again. We can make all these cuts. And as Michelle mentions, there's $1 million in anticipated surplus, right? So that's actually now a deficit for the following year. So in the 25-26 school, 26-27 school year, 25-26 school year, we're already starting behind, right? We need the tax levy is not in alignment with inflation. It has fallen way behind. It's probably behind by the tune of about $7 million. Before we cut anything more, because all this is going to do is these cuts are going to come and they're never going to go back in. Once it cuts, it never goes. And Mrs. Scour, you and I know this. Once they're gone, they're gone. So before we cut everything again, I would go out with two options. I'd go out with a PS cap option that would reset the tax levy, so we at least maintain this reduced level that we're in now. We could still do a demographic. We probably should do a demographic study anyway to see what this is going to look like in 5 years. I mean, right now our kindergarten class is actually larger than our first, second, and fourth graders, and we had 600 already pre-K applications. So I'm suspecting that if our enrollment's going down, it's probably going down at a very low trajectory, right? We can reset the levy, possibly before we make all these cuts, and have a demographer come in and explain to us what we're going to look like in 3 to 5 years. Then we can make a rational decision on what to close, what not to close, if that's the choice that's going to be made. Right? If he says no enrollment's going to stay steady, maybe we don't close a building. But the fact of the matter is we cannot cut our way to success, because every year we're going to be doing this exact same thing because we already have a deficit going into the following school year. I don't know if I'm wrong. Michelle, tell me I'm wrong. But these are mathematical facts. I mean, it's
Right.
the only thing we have to help ourselves is the tax levy. We're not getting help from the state. The state giveth, but then taketh much more away, right? They tout that they gave us 1.2 million. It may be 500,000, but the bills they give us far exceed that. They already put us in a negative deficit. That's an argument. We should be up in Albany. We should be jumping up and down in Albany. What the hell is going on? Because I can't explain why Brentwood got $38 million more. They can't even reserve that money. Okay. So there's no rationalization up in Albany about how state aid is done. It's just a formula. But the only thing we have to help ourselves is the tax levy. So I'll advocate it because I could foresee what's coming, but I guess it's up to the majority of the board what we do.
Stephanie?
One of the things you had brought up, and it addresses not even close to what you're bringing up, but it does give a little path, is that the day after last week's meeting, we met with local electeds as a legislative committee, as an administration, and some of the board members had come, and they were willing to help us, which is not anything new, but they heard our plea about what you're exactly talking about. So for some reason, we fall in a little bit wealthier. That also will bring us down in state aid for some reason. So they had solutions to that. They had, advocating for full funding for UPK tuition. Instead of us paying the $5,400, we get reimbursed for the $6,000. There are things we can do as a community also to help advocate for why we're in the position we're in every single year. So I fully understand what you're saying about that, but there's also reasons why we're getting less funding, why it looks like we're getting less than Middle Country, less than Longwood, less than, our surrounding similar districts. We count a little bit higher in wealth, and it's hurting us.
Ms. Attorney?
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I meant to mention that to show the community and ourselves the absurdity of the situation we're in. The absurdity is that they tout the fact that they explain the fact that they give us less state aid because our CWR is increasing, right? Our combined wealth ratio. Therefore, your community has more of an ability to pay. Okay, so let's presume that's completely rational, right? People are wealthy, and everybody fills out their tax form. They put 553 on it, and they get told how much a person in Sachem is making. So we're getting a little wealthier. So your community has the ability to pay more. Okay, what's the mechanism for that? You all know what's the mechanism.
It's taxes.
It's a property tax levy, right? But they control that with a formula that's 2% or CPI, whichever is less. So these people could all be millionaires, and unless 60 out of every 100 vote yes, they can't pay another penny more. It's ridiculous. It is an absurdity. It's become an absurdity. It's fundamentally flawed. The whole system's fundamentally flawed thanks to that.
Meredith?
So I'm part of the legislative committee, and we did meet with them. And one of the things that I found really interesting is that our governor is currently sitting on a $12.8 billion in reserves. $12.8 billion. We're sitting here scrapping for pennies. We're sitting here advocating for every last dime, and she has 12.8 billion. Okay. What we need the community to do I love that you guys came out strong. I love that I got 3,000 emails, and I probably have some people that I didn't respond to. And I'm sorry, but I work full time and I had a really rough week. So if I didn't get back to you, I'm sorry. But I love how strong you guys came out. I love how much you advocated, but we have to take this higher. It's not just this board. This board makes really tough decisions, and trust me, we all agonize over every last one of them. We don't take any of it lightly. But we have to advocate for Sachem as a whole. We met with our legislators. I said to them, it doesn't make any sense to me. We have something called TAN. Most people don't know what it is. And basically, the easiest way to explain it is our bills start in September, but our revenue doesn't come in until January. So imagine in your household, if your bills are coming in, but you're not getting paid until January, how are you going to pay those bills? We borrow money to pay those bills. We pay a lot. We pay over $2 million in interest on that money that we borrow. So I said, well, why can't the governor give us that money out of her $12.8 billion in reserves? Makes sense, right? Give us a 0% interest loan, and we give it back to you in January because we're guaranteed to get it in January. Things like this that make sense that nobody is advocating for. Or how about the fact that we get paid the same amount for pre-K right now that we did 18 years ago? Is it absurd that the kids that were in pre-K the last time we got an increase are now graduating high school? That's absurd. $5,400. It costs more than $5,400. But here's more absurdity. All these wonderful families out here that say, I'll pay the extra difference because it costs the district $250,000. I'll pay the extra difference. Nope, you're not allowed. That's what the state says. You guys say you want to do it. You have no problem doing it, paying the $600. It's a bargain, $600 a year to send your kid to a wonderful pre-K program, but you're not allowed to do it. These are the things that don't make sense. These are the things that everybody just says, the next person will take care of it. The next person will take care of it. Well, guess what? There was a time 7 years ago when I thought the next person was going to take care of it, and everybody said, you should run for the board. And I ran for the board, and I ran unopposed, which means that nobody else really wanted to take care of it. And guess what? This year, only one person picked up a packet. There's 3 of us that are out this year. And 3 of us who right now, I don't think the 3 of us are pulling packets right now. So it's up to you as the community to get it together, start advocating. Don't advocate just to us. The buck doesn't stop with us. Go up to Albany. Tell them what we need. Talk to your local politicians. This one woman came in, Rebecca Cassay. She was amazing. She had great, wonderful ideas. And you know what? Things that you would think bipartisanly should pass, she said she doesn't get a lot of support on. It makes sense. We have to start making more sense, and we have to start advocating for this community as a whole, not just Merrimack, not just whatever, this community as a whole. And I really hope that when we roll out what we're going to roll out with the legislative committee, that we have all of you times 20 to come out and help us advocate, because we need this from the government. We don't need it from just us.
Meredith, just to piggyback on just even if the state didn't want to give us an interest-free loan for the amount of time, for money that we're getting anyway, they don't even allow us to borrow from a credit union, where we could borrow at a lower interest rate. All right, they restrict credit unions from being able to bid. So we could save, probably $1 million in interest just by using a credit union, but we're restricted to commercial banks that make a profit. So those are the things that need to change. But just to piggyback on what Ms. Iserni said, look, the last time we had to do this, we had to make changes. This board is in a position this year where there's nothing on here that we want to cut. We don't want to increase class sizes by 2, but we fought to lower class sizes to make them more manageable. We don't want to cut transportation for 250 of our parochial kids. It's something that in good times we wouldn't consider, but we're forced to make these cuts, or cut 8, secondary teachers, which is going to increase class sizes. There is nothing good on this list that we want to cut, but the state has put us in a position where we have no choice. I fought to lower class sizes over the years, and in the last 2 years, we're looking at raising it by 3. And when people say, well, it's only 3 students, it's not 3. A class can conceivably jump from 21 to 27, and that's a very, very normal thing. But to Mike's point, it took us a long time the last time we did this to get back to where we're at. One thing I could say is that in a couple of years, I think I heard the number, we're looking at possibly up to 400 to 500 retirees. We're going to have this big boom of retirees. And when that happens in this district or any district, you're able to hire staff back at a much lower rate. And so hopefully that'll be the silver lining where we could start putting back some of the things that we're taking out right now. It's going to take some time. It's easy to cut them. It happens quickly. It takes you several years to get them back. And those are the things that we need to focus on, because at the end of the day, we want to be able to provide our students with the same opportunities we had as children, but more so the best education we could possibly give them. So at this particular point in time, if there's no questions, we're going to direct administration to move forward with option 2, with the understanding that we're waiting for certain numbers to come back from state aid, some additional information to possibly tweak or adjust this as we need to. Is everybody okay with that? Okay. Ms. Reynolds?
Just want to add to Mike's point, do we want administration to come back to us with an option that pierces the cap just for comparative purposes?
Well, we got to take a leaning of the board. All right. Last year it was 51%. Okay. We fell 9% shy of, even though 51% is a majority, we fell 9% shy of piercing that cap.
And again, just looking
So,
at options, right?
There is
We
a
need
cost
options.
associated with that. Understand?
Yeah, if it fails, then
About
it's going to
$60,000 to
cost us.
$70,000 for a second, election. A second vote. If that doesn't happen, it also sets us back probably about 4 or 5 weeks in the whole process. If the board if there's a board majority, we could direct them to do that.
Yeah.
So
I'm just looking for options, not looking to put it on the ballot yet. Just
no, but
options
the
for
thing is
discussion,
options.
right?
With everything that's been going on, I couldn't update my stuff on the budget advisory committee. Were they recommending that? I thought I saw that
So
they were
several of the
recommending
committee members are recommending we should consider piercing.
piercing the cap.
Some of them were on the committee last year who were opposed to it, but this year they see the need and they're suggesting it. So they're going to present us at the budget adoption meeting, and that's one of their recommendations right now for probably 3 of them, 3 or more, is we should at least consider piercing. I'm not advocating for or against it, but I think Mike's bringing it up. We should look at the option. What does it look like? Show it to the community. It's an option, right?
I can't have an opinion yet.
Okay, all right. Meredith?
It's just getting numbers, right? So it's just,
Michelle, if you, last year's a little fuzzy. I remember I came into the meeting kicking and screaming that I would not vote for any piercing, and then started to understand that maybe there is reasons why it would be okay to do some piercing. If you gave us options like you did last year, are you able to estimate how much that increases each household? I think you did that last year, right?
Yes, we can have that for the next budget presentation next
Okay.
week. We
All
could
right.
do 3 different levels.
Just because people need to understand, like we throw out numbers like 2% and things like that, but I live in the town of Islip, and 1 year my taxes went up by $800, and it was pretty scary. So if you can,
So would you
I'm-
want us to run numbers to close the entire gap or a portion of the
I,
gap?
I would
with
prefer not
Pierce?
to have multiple options. I think there's just one option that closes the gap versus option 2 here, so we can see.
Okay.
Last year, we got into this 4.97, 3.49. It split the board. There was no legitimate reason for 3.49, in my opinion, because we still had to borrow from reserves. So let's just get one option that closes the gap. I think that's the most legitimate one.
The only thing I would suggest, Vinny, is the 1.75 million that's unknown. You'd have to have a number that if that passed, you wouldn't need the same number, right? So
I
you'd have-
brought that up before. So
Yeah.
that's 1.75 million is a risk, right?
Right, so you have to give us a number at,
So
with
once again-
everything, with everything, in other words, that did not pass, right? So, and then a number with that passing.
Correct. Okay.
Laura?
So my only problem with piercing the cap, and I was outspoken last year, is then some of the tough decisions that we as a board have to make, we now have a buffer and don't make any. And then that'll just push it down the road till we have to pierce the cap again. So to me, some decisions like New York State minimums on certain things or things that we should be looking at anyway, we need to make tough decisions. That's what we're elected to do. And so then if we just pierce the cap to cover the full shortfall, then no decisions are going to be made. That's just my opinion. And again, I'm one person. I'm not going to be on the board next year. So if the majority of the board wants to pierce the cap, I will support you.
Stephanie?
My question is that, so that's removing all the cuts?
It doesn't have to be. It could remove some of the cuts. It might say, you know what, we know that we're going to see a big retirement boom in 2 or 3 years. You know, maybe we save those 8 positions in elementary school
Okay.
and we keep class
So
as where they are right now.
I would
It doesn't have to
prefer
be all or none.
a couple
Yeah.
of options because I respectfully disagree that in my opinion, we went too high last year. I think the 3.49 would have passed. That was and we will never know.
Yeah.
So maybe we should have more than one option so that we can keep sensible cuts that nobody wants to do, but we're going to have to plan for the future. We have lower enrollment.
Yeah.
And even though our enrollment might have leveled off, we're still way less than we were several years ago. So I would like to see at least 2 options so that we went through all this work for what? Just to say, okay, throw money at it?
Yeah. So time is really tight to be able to do this. So the question becomes nothing's written in concrete. We're not making a decision tonight to Pierce. We just want to gather information to see what it is, get the feeling and tone of the community. Okay. And at particular point, worst case scenarios is that we're going to be at option 2. Is that correct?
So Rob, just
Yeah.
again, for the record, I've been adamant about not piercing the cap,
Yeah.
but Mike continues to bring up this point, and I
Yeah.
think we owe it to the community to look at it
Yeah.
and see what, again, we're not making a decision tonight. It's just that we need to see options on this, right?
Yeah.
So that's all we're asking for.
And just if you remember a couple of years ago, we were going out with a budget, okay, that was at the cap level. There was significant cuts similar to like what we have here. And the community actually asked us to pierce it and give them an opportunity to pass it. It didn't pass. It was closer to 57 or 58%. It still didn't meet that 60% majority, but the community actually asked us before we make those cuts, give us an opportunity. So I don't know if that's going to be the tone. Well, we had 900 people in the auditorium, so there was a couple of people there. Yeah. So the question is, it doesn't hurt to look at the numbers. It doesn't mean that we're going to do it. Question is, do we want to look at a couple different options so we can see a lower, a medium? Okay. I don't know that full $6.5 million in the cap is, once again, you're probably looking at 4 point something
It
percent.
could be closer to 5 and a
5%.
quarter.
So that's pretty high for the community. So I would want to see some options, but they would have to be lower, so maybe offset some of the reductions that we have in here.
And
Rob,
we're
yes.
still appropriating.
Yeah, that's my
$12
point.
million,
That's my point.
even
We,
if
we
we're
go lower on
passing.
an option. We're still pulling from reserves, which the auditors reminded us in October, you're going to go bankrupt real quick. We keep doing that. And we are headed there, right? We are headed there. We're
If
12
we-
million in the gap. We're going to keep pulling from reserves,
Right.
and we're going to end up at 15,000 in the bank account like 10 years ago.
If the option was to pierce just to cover the $6.5 million gap, that still has a $12 million use of fund balance and reserves. So
Mhm.
the district still needs to shrink the
Mhm.
budget.
Correct.
Okay.
No matter what, Michelle, you just said the words, say it very loud. We still need to shrink the budget.
Yeah, nobody's saying we don't, right?
No.
We still need to look at buildings. We still need to do all of that. And you guys know, we've been like hawks on that, looking for ways to cut. So
Do we want to see the numbers and decide whether or not we want to discuss it in open session? If it's unrealistic, I mean, it's just information. We could just use it as a comparison. Is everybody okay with that? All right, Alex?
Yeah, I'm not going to stop a board member from seeing numbers. I think
Yeah.
everyone should see them.
Okay, Meredith? Laura? Mike? Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments? All right, we have visitors, public comment. Okay, we have quite a bit of cards up here, and I'm sure 99.9% of them are Merrimack. I will call you up. We're going to limit it to 3 minutes per community member. At 2 minutes and 40 seconds, Jim? Yeah, I'm just finished what I'm saying, if it's okay. We'll limit it to, 2:40, 2 minutes and 40 seconds. Allison, just let the speaker know that they have 20 seconds to wrap it up. Okay. If there's anybody that feels that they want to, that they don't need to talk when I call your name, just let me know. But I want to keep this cordial. I want to keep this professional. Please, I'm going to ask the community not to direct questions to individual board members. At the end, we'll summarize. I don't know if we need to summarize, but we'll do the best. Obviously, public comments to hear the concerns of the community.
Rob, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I have to go to the restroom.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Could we start? Okay. 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 All right, first person, Matthew Linsalata. Matthew Linsalata. Is Matthew here? All right, we can come. Oh, he's coming? Okay. Yeah, just make sure the green button's on, please.
Hey, good evening. So I'm going to make this short and simple. I'm not going to take my full 3 minutes because you guys did touch on it. So what I wanted to speak about was the addition of +2 in the classroom, because I think the public needs to understand, and I know that we had spoken about it, that in essence, it seems like it's +2 and it's not just that much. But what it could actually end up doing in a real life scenario by collapsing sections in the elementary schools is increasing your number in the elementary schools up from 19, 20, 26, 27, 28. And what
Absolutely.
that does in elementary school, which is the foundation of setting up our students for success in the future, is detrimental to the level of service that they get on a day-to-day basis. So I want to make sure that we stress the importance of that, because I understand that there are cuts that have to be made. We need to figure this out. But we're talking about children that are just getting started in their educational process. And by limiting the amount of time that teachers have with each student, I think that would be detrimental to their overall success long term. Thank you very much.
Thank you. John Hastings.
Do I have to hold it on? All right, microphone's fun. So I'd like to start off from being at last night's meeting to this meeting. I understand how much hard work you guys have put into coming up with other options. I think everybody here appreciates that you are looking into it, taking our concerns real. And it's nice to see that there are new things and there's a ton of work that's been going into trying to find new things. So thank you for that. The one question I have in hearing everybody talk about the passion going into closing schools and how hard it is to make these decisions, I found it still a bit shocking that the last board meeting, the 7,800 policy was just dismissed. And last night it was made very clear that nobody wants to reinstate that. It was taken off indefinitely. So if there are going to be other buildings considered, if it's not Merrimack, other ones, where are you going to get the right people to make sure that it's the building that should be closed? Because Gate Lot, maybe it was a great school, but it has ruined the community. It's just a piece of garbage sitting there now that nobody wants to occupy. And you can't, it's a condemned building. It's ruining the community. So that could very easily happen to Merrimack. It could happen to any other schools. I'm not here saying save Merrimack. I'm saying don't pick another building out of just a quick deadline. And this policy is going to help make sure that that happens. Unless on the board there are real estate experts and other people who are going to understand what the best building is. But I think that this is really important. We need to have this back.
No, we're not going to go back and forth. Maria Sanders.
Hello, am I on?
Yes.
Hello, everyone. My name is Maria Sanders. I am a proud Sachem parent of a current senior. I'm a proud parent of two graduates. My senior is actually up at Hudson Valley at a robotics competition. I'm also the Sachem PTA Council President. I serve on the New York State PTA advocacy team. I spent today at legislative conference with National PTA, where we spoke to our senators and our representatives and asked them for more funding. Earlier this week, New York State PTA was up in Albany asking our elected officials for more state funding, among other things, right? So to what Meredith was saying, we need you and our community to come out. Our wonderful friends in Yonkers brought out hundreds of students on buses to go up to our representatives' offices to ask them to help them and to support them and to fill these gaps that we're facing right now. There's no reason Sachem can't do it. Today, all I heard from our elected officials was, thank you so much for meeting with us and telling us your wants and your needs. We need this. We need to be able to say that our constituents are coming to us with these wants and needs. If the community doesn't come out to make these asks are not the asks of just those sitting, the trustees in front of us. These have to be the asks of the community. It's wonderful to see so many people at this board meeting. I would love to see all these people with their children and their partners and their neighbors all come out to tell Albany, to tell our federal government, we need more help. We need more funding to be able to give our kids the things that we need. So that is my plea to everyone. I also sit on the legislative committee. We need to come together as a community to ask for more so that we can give our students more. It's not fair. Like I'm hearing people around me say, well, it is your job, but it is not simply your job. It is our job as a collective community to come together and say, this is what our community needs. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Tony Garcia.
Thank you very much. When this was being discussed, there was a talk of everybody has to understand that something is still going to happen, cuts still have to happen. Everybody has to understand that this is going to happen. Our population is shrinking, which is not an unreasonable statement. I think that the thing that concerns a lot of the people in this room, I don't speak for everyone, is the lack of transparency in the process. The budget process goes on. It's an annual process. It's constantly going on. You have 1-year projection, 3-year projections, 5-year projections, 10-year projections, and you adjust them on a quarterly or biannual timing. Now, it all depends, but you know a lot of those things that are coming, and you need to have backup plans to assume that you're not going to get what you want, and then have the plan for, of course, when you do get what you want. And the really concerning thing is that it feels like, whether it is or isn't, is that there has become a lack of transparency between the board and the community, which is unfortunate and should never be. But when the board takes an action like that one that happened last week in negating 7,800, what that is really is just a document that states that the community has a voice in the process, and that the Board of Education will engage them early, will engage them in the process. So at the end of the day, if you say to us, Merrimack has to close, we need to move things. We've readjusted the districts. We've gone through all this analysis. We've seen what we've been able to save on the busing, and we've seen what we haven't been able to. And this is the plan forward. And this is the plan forward for what's going to happen as they collapse. You have plans right now where kids come together to one school and then separate for another high school and then back again, traveling 20 minutes, a half an hour versus 5 minutes in a bus. There's a lot you have to look at, and I'm not trying to say there isn't, but that transparency has to come back. And the Board of Education, and I say this with respect because this is a very difficult job. The Board of Education works for the people in this room. We do not work for the Board of Education. The Board of Education is accountable to us, and this Board of Education's job, when you chose to volunteer, and thank you all for doing it, you agreed to stand up here and find solutions based on the constraints that you had. Now, this is a problem that's been going on for years, and it predates many of you.
You have 20 seconds remaining, sir.
But I think that any plan that is to, well, we'll fix it this year. It'll get us 3 years ahead. Oh, it'll get us 4 years ahead. That's not long-term planning. And it's also not what the Board of Education is supposed to be doing. It's supposed to be worrying about the future. We shouldn't be having this conversation now. We should be having this conversation 8, 12 months ago. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Sarah Wilson.
Hello.
Hi, Ms.
Hi. My name is 8,600, which is what I paid last year in my school taxes, because I feel at this point we are all just a dollar sign. My first question is, I noticed your third-party audit was by EFPR since 2016 school year, and I'm curious who decides that is who we are using and why has it been so long? It seems like a 10-year auditor looking at our books would be biased at this point. And at what point do the auditors say, hey guys, not good? I would think when we were $10 over budget, there should have been a conversation. And then my next question is just, where did our money go? We hear a lot of buzzwords of inflation and low enrollment, but I want to know where our money went, down to how much a chicken nugget is. I feel at this point in the financial crisis that we're in, it is owed to us to open the books completely. It is getting frustrating to hear. You can go online, you can research it, you can look it up. I don't really feel that is our responsibility at a $12 million deficit. I think it is the responsibility of SACHM, of the board, to show us line by line where our money went, why we're over, and when did this start? Did this start when we opened SACHM East and now we are dealing with that consequence? I just feel, the transparency is lacking, and I don't know why more information isn't being given to us. And it seems like everything you guys said was very contradicting. Thank you for showing up. You guys are great, but you need to do more. We're not going to close Merrimack. Everyone applauds, but hey, guess what? We're closing schools. So it just seems like everyone is going to be leaving here worse off than when we came in, because clearly you guys seem to be talking in riddles. Like, we don't know what's going on. You give us the options, but then you say, when we make a cut, it's never coming back. So then why am I going to pay more in taxes? That mathematically doesn't seem to make sense. And it seems very threatening. And it's very unfortunate, especially all of us with young children. What is their future going to be? It makes me not really want to send my kids to SACHM anymore, because what's going to happen 10 years from now? So that's all.
Thank you, Ms. Busson. Heather Potter.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for allowing us to speak with you all tonight. I really appreciate it. I'm a proud mom of 2 Merrimack students, and I'm going to borrow a little bit of a pattern that I'm sure all parents here know from the famous If You Give a Mouse a Cookie book. If an elementary school closes, the students will be placed in other buildings. Those buildings will now have higher enrollment and less space. And then if a middle school needs to close, say in the 26-27 school year, those 6th graders will need to return to elementary buildings where, once again, there isn't a lot of room and more students. My guess is we probably don't even know if the schools can accommodate that. And that will end up leading to redistricting or rezoning of the elementary schools, where everyone in the district will be affected, whether they are personally displaced or friends have to be moved to new schools. And if that needs to happen, will you reinstate policy 7800 and follow the proper process? Or at that point, will a random school be targeted for closure? It's your responsibility as a board to the community, to us as taxpayers, but most importantly to the students of this school district, to make a carefully and well thought out plan that doesn't just solve a budget crisis for this coming year, but sets up our entire district for success for many years to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Jason Jones.
Good evening. My name is Jason Jones. I'm the PTA president at Merrimack Elementary School. I have a beautiful little girl in 3rd grade, and I'd like to thank you for last night coming and standing up to the group and saying what you had to say. We weren't happy, but we appreciate you coming and saying all that. I've got a couple points I've had to par it down since the beginning of the meeting, obviously. Okay. I'm not here to speak for the PTA. I'm here to speak for my family. And I think I'm echoing some of the questions from the group. 7,800 has been brought up many times tonight. I think it shows clear intent to take away our voice, to take away that policy. It takes away our voice when you take away that policy. I said it again. Why do you want to take away our voice? Why? It's not fair. This is a democracy. We voted for you. It's our taxpayer dollars, and you're taking away our input. It's hurtful. It's disrespectful. Okay. Secondly, I do want to echo Tony Garcia's point. Thank you for volunteering. I can't do it. Obviously, we've all but, ask the PTA president, he'll do it. This is a lot of work. I don't have the time, and I really appreciate your time. But I implore you, don't forget about the children. You made that announcement last week at the meeting. Children were crying. Superintendent, you saw them. Deputy superintendent, you saw them crying, walking into school. You saw families crying. That was a flippant, I shouldn't use that word. I really don't know. That was a knee-jerk reaction to a problem that should have been foreseen. That shouldn't be something that we hear about 3 days before. Whoever's responsible for knowing that should have been announced should have been saying it, maybe an exec. Hey guys, we're going to have to mention this. Hey guys, we're going to have to bring this up. This is going to hurt the community. This is going to hurt the children. And this is going to affect our culture of care that we're pushing so hard at Sachem Day. The communities all come out. The PTAs come out for Sachem Day to support the district and support the culture of care. That showed me, my family, that that's not utmost and a priority. Okay. I've got a bunch of more notes here, but that culture of care is so very important. Our school, our principal, Miss Tucci, she is beside herself. We're trying to come up with ideas, and she's limiting what we can do because she's taking the right role. She's got to be the administrator and think of the students and stop us from doing something that may be not right. Okay. But we need you to guide us on some of these legislative things that we can advocate for. I haven't gotten anything in the mail that says, I need you to come to Albany on Tuesday or next month and advocate for this point.
You have 20 seconds remaining.
I'll go to Albany. I do it for my job. I'll do it for my children. And I know I'll drive a busload of people with me. Tell me what to do to advocate for what you want. I don't have time for the board, but I have time for individual tasks. And I'm sure we all do too. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
7,800, we won it back.
Dana Walker.
Hi, thank you for hearing us. I will try not to get emotional for anyone that was there last night. I want to say thank you for putting the Merrimack down right now. You made me have to cross out a bunch of stuff, so that's a good thing. But I do want to say you said that, but then at the same time, like others have said, you're crisscrossing what you're saying. The 7,800 policy, I think we're all going to keep saying it. That gives us our voice. It gives us a voice to be more detailed in what we can say. It gives a voice to Merrimack is a school that has majority of special ed kids. And it makes us able to say, look at that too. Yeah, we have low enrollment. Yeah, we might be a smaller school. Yeah, we might have all these things, but to move, and no offense to neurotypical kids, to move a bunch of special ed kids is harmful to them. To have them to go somewhere else, replace them, have new workers, that's not going to happen. And you guys need to look at that. And for us to trust that you're going to look at that, we need that policy back. And the fact that we sat there stern-faced and told, nope, not happening. You're taking our voice. That's crazy. I also wanted to go back and say, where is the transparency? I know we're all saying it. What's happening with it? Where is it? And again, you guys keep going to us. Got to do this community. I have a second grader. I don't know what this is. I don't know what I'm talking about. I need you guys to say, start a Facebook page, start an Instagram page, start something, start an email chain that says, let's go to Albany. Hey, this is what these mean. This is what 7,800 means. I didn't know what that was until Jay explained it to us. He shouldn't have to. You guys should explain it to us. We're taking this away. This is what it means. So transparency, let us know what we need to do. and we will be there. Look at us. We will be there to do it. But it's up to you to tell us what we need to do. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Joseph Fenton.
Okay. I wasn't going to say much. I'm still not. Just you answered a lot of questions, and we appreciate it. And there was a lot of really smart, educated people making some really good points before me. I don't know as much about the numbers and everything that's being talked about. I'll just tell you what I do know. I'm not going to read off this. I know about leadership and how to lead people. And I guarantee you at one point, well, you got into this because you're a leader in your community and wherever. Just remember why you got into it. Because there seems to be a little bit of a disconnect. That's all I'll say. Saying, we're pitting Merrimack against Grundy, all this. Like, I know these people. That's not happening. None of that's happening. We are all here for Sachem. So you challenged us to go to Albany. I accept your challenge. I will challenge you back to just get to know the people that you're serving a little bit more, because leadership truly is about service, and it's about communication and transparency, and it's about doing the right thing when nobody's looking. And I think that is why a lot of people were upset last week, because we felt that we were not looking and the right thing was not done. So do the right thing when nobody's looking, get to know your people that you serve, and we will back you up 100%. All right. That's all I got to say.
Thank you. Fred Gorman. Okay.
Rob, while Fred's walking in, just so everyone can stop asking, I wasn't here last week. I understand that there was reasons why things happened, but the community does deserve a voice, and we should just reinstate it so that they should not have to ask for it. So I make the motion to reinstate the policy.
I second the motion. I second.
All right. We have a motion and a second. All right. Discussion.
Can I just have
just
so
before we go in there. What's that? We
Okay.
understand that the motion was made last week as an emergency action. Okay, because
The safety net.
if New York State had given us a deadline of May 1st, okay, we would have had the time to look and dig and see where we could make up that $6.5 million gap. I'm going to be honest with you. I mean, look, I'm a big advocate of public opinion and seeking the advice of public, but I think we had to do it differently. I think policy 7800 has to be revised so that people aren't getting on the committee just to save their school. I'm sorry, I was on the board years ago, and that's what happened. Jim, you on that committee, okay? And people got on a committee just to save their school. Right? And the issue that we have is that how can we get voice from all of the people, and rather than just the 30 people on the committee? Let's have a public forum. Let's have several public hearings so everybody's voice can be heard.
Yeah.
Not just the 30 people
Listen,
on that committee.
it's our policy,
Yeah.
so we could put it back in,
No, look,
and then
I
we'll
think
take the
we-
time to revise it over the next couple of months and get what you need.
We need to rise it. There's no question about
I'm
it.
not doing it for the clapping. I'm doing it because I think it's the right thing to do. I wasn't here last week, and I would have said the same thing. I just think it stops that knee jerk of we have to do this immediately to stop it.
So again, I apologize to the community, and I've apologized to my board members for missing meetings due to personal reasons. But I just want everybody to be aware when policy 7800 was in effect, and we did have our committee, and we had our demographer professional, our facilitator a professional. We presented to the board closed no schools. Then when we came to a crisis and we had to close schools, the board suspended the policy and we closed Gate Lot, Sequoia, and Tecumseh. So that's how that happened. So I'm in favor of putting it back because I do think we need to do this the right way. We need professionals to come in the right way. And whether we revise the policy or what we do, But when it was suspended, just so everybody knows, and Gate Lot was closed, which was my son's elementary school, it wasn't just closed because we just voted to close whatever. We had a professional demographer come in, present to the community. These are the schools that we recommend to close. I did not want to close my son's school. Of course I didn't. I went with what the professional told me to do. That is how that decision got made. So as Rob said, if you have a committee meet up, everybody's just going to want to save their own school. So I think a professional facilitator, along with community, along with administration, to look at the future of Sachem. Where is our enrollment going? What is happening? Where are these students going? That's what needs to be done. But at the end of the day, our enrollment is down. It is. I know people don't believe it is, but it is. And we just need to plan for the future. This is my last year on the board after many years. We need to plan for the future. So when my grandchildren are coming to Sachem, this will be where it needs to be. So I'm in favor.
Just for clarification, Laura. All right. I'm not opposed to a policy, okay, and I make it very clear to the committee. I'm not opposed to a policy that seeks public opinion, public feedback. Not at all. But what did transpire, and you were there, okay, is that community members got together. The meetings became extremely contentious. At one point, arguments were breaking out, and people had to be removed from the meeting because people. No, let me finish. I have the floor, okay, and it started to become a problem, okay, and the fact is that everybody was passionate about being there, and everybody was passionate about saving their school. We are responsible for 11,800 kids, right? Not just their own school and not just their own kids. And at the end of the day, that recommendation from the demographer had a complete opposite recommendation of what that committee recommended. And then what happened was the committee said, well, why didn't you take our, you brought us in as a committee, why didn't you take our, because the demographer had no personal ties to any particular schools. He just basically gave us the facts. This is what you would have to travel this far. You'd have to pass this school. Okay. So I'm not opposed to that. We would have to revise that policy and to include more people. But once again, we would have to have public hearings and public feedback. So not just the 30 people or 40 people on the committee, everybody in the district will be able to come back, okay, and provide us with information, okay, that we would consider. So every decision I make on this board, I go out to people. If I hear something that's going on in a school, okay, I reach out to people in school, and before I raise my hand, I do my homework. There's no question about it. And so the thing is that we'd want more people, more public feedback, but not just, once again, people advocating for just their own school, because that's what happened. That is exactly what happened, and that's why I feel the way I feel. And it was suspended back then, and it was never reinstated. Yeah. All right. So it's here. It was suspended as emergency action because we weren't sure what we were looking at. But we have a motion. Yep, Ms. Isernia, and then Stephanie. I'm sorry.
Just quick. We're actually in the visitors portion of the agenda. We need to finish that, and we probably should put this motion into the the business items, right? That before you do that. Right, and have that discussion there. So I would just table it.
Yeah, we are in the middle of public discussion, but we could actually.
We have public comment right now, right?
Public comment. Yeah. We need to, we have another thing we have to approve in our agenda as a formal approval.
I know. I interrupted because people came out from their houses. They have kids at home. People want to go home. Like they shouldn't have to come up and beg every time they come up. If we could stop it now, let's stop it now and just use common sense. They wasted money on the shirts. They shouldn't have to waste their time.
My comment is short on this. I fully understand the community and every single thing, and I get it. I get exactly, we were under duress last week. So we did make decisions rashly, right? We weren't expecting to go in the direction we were going, 100%. I think this could be solved by just vetting the committee better and not planning so close to when we need the decisions made. If we start the vetting, and we can have that up for discussion, we can have the committee selection up for when it needs to happen. Does it happen tomorrow? Does it happen after the budget vote? And then we figure out a selection process so we don't have people quite frankly, we're having some issues with our committees right now. So, abuse, pitting schools against each other, pitting community members against each other. All the horrible stuff that could happen, we're Sachem, we're better than that. So let's figure out a way to make the committee more effective, more productive, and reach solutions that we can move forward with instead of everything being so contentious. That's where I think it could go if we did better vetting. And I thought I was going to be short, and I'm sorry I'm not.
Ed?
Yeah, so you can just make a motion, dispense with the order of the agenda and take this action item out of order and add it to the agenda. So you'd make a motion to dispense with the order of the agenda, then you make a separate motion to approve this motion, if you want to do that now.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, discussion?
Go out of order.
Yeah.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Okay, once again, public discussion.
We're going to go back into public discussion.
Yeah.
We're going to go back.
I will support it today, okay, but we need to make revisions to it. So what happened last time does not happen again. Yeah, we can't have community members having, arguments and
just vote on this
yeah.
one.
Yeah, so
No.
yeah, this is the policy. You'd be
This
voting
is
on.
just to take it out of order.
Yeah,
vote to
there's
take it out of
two
order.
separate motions, a motion to take it out of order, and then a second motion to reinstate the policy.
I made the motion. Vinny made the second.
All right, all in favor to take it out of order? Opposed? Motion's
I'll
carried.
make the motion to put policy 7800 back in.
I second.
All right. In favor? Hold on. Discussion.
All I would suggest is until this budget cycle's done, in case, God forbid, the state comes back and takes, $2 million from us, we don't make it effective reinstated till July 1st.
No, I disagree. We already took it off the table. We got to work what we have. We're going down this path. So
I just want everybody to understand that last week when I personally, I am not speaking for anybody else, when I personally voted that it was okay to suspend it, it was because I felt that it was a safety net for us in the moment, just because we were up against the March 1st deadline and it was February 26th. I had to do what I had to do in the moment so that we could figure this out, so that we could have this discussion that's happening now where we do everything in a more rational way. So I don't want to take anybody's voice away. I'm begging you all to advocate more and speak up more. But that's why I personally voted for it.
There's easy things and there's hard things. I wasn't here last week. We cannot push rewind. There's easy things for us to do tonight. Let's put the policy back in and move forward with public comment so we can finish the agenda.
All right. I have a motion and a second. All in favor? All right. Opposed? Motion's carried. All right. Okay. I need a motion to go back into public comment. Laura, second. Alex, any questions or discussions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried.
Sorry, Fred.
Trustees, when it comes to closing a school, enrollment should be the only issue. And it should be done by an outside third party, not by a board, because you guys are going to look guilty whatever you do. There's no way you can please anyone when you're turning around and closing their school. And you don't want people fighting. You get a third-party professional in there, you do it, and you guarantee the only reason you'll consider it is enrollment. Now, I think everybody, I know the board knows my opinion about the contingent budget and how I differ with someone over here. But I'm going to tell you right now, if you guys decide to pierce the cap, you're probably going to have a vote of 10,000. Understand you had a vote last year of 8,000. 4,000 said no, 4,000 said yes. That 4,000 that said no is going to be pissed off you did it again. They're definitely going to be back. And you can figure with everything else that's going on here and the way you're talking, yeah, people are going to be involved because you're doing it a second time. You're going to look at a 10,000 vote. And, I'm going to play my part because I don't believe you should do it. And I want to point out to you, I haven't really looked at your reserves. I'm going to assume there's still somewhere around 50 million combined with the fund balance. That's roughly $2,000 per taxpayer. You have $2,000 of taxpayer money sitting in your pocket complaining you're starving. And you don't want to use it now. You say you want to use it later. I can't tell you that there's going to be a later. We may have a Suffolk County School District if you leave it up to the government the way they're going now. You just don't know. And we could have a windfall. Who knows? Maybe Trump is going to bring in all these millions of dollars. Maybe not. And I understand you have to be concerned, but you're sitting on $2,000 of my money and everybody in this room that pays taxes, their money, including all those parents that are grandparents that are 65, 70, that are trying to survive in a home on a fixed income. So you got to take them into account too. And by the way, I love the tax cap. I helped get it established. I understand you and I are on complete opposite ends. I'll have a conversation with you anytime you want on that subject. And let's have 100 people in the room. Thank you.
Kim Dempsey.
I'm not sure exactly what to say at this point because it is. I'm not sure exactly what to say because I do appreciate you guys interjecting before we all got to finish because I was prepared to ask you to reconsider reinstating Code 7800. It was really hard to understand why a code that the board created and backed for over 20 years was, I understand emergency situations, but hearing it to be suspended until 2025, 2026, and then indefinitely was a huge concern. I do agree that I think that we need to look at other scenarios to improve the policy, but not just suspend it and abolish it. It's apparent now that a short-term plan is just beginning to be established. I think that it's really so important and so badly needed that a long-term plan be created and implemented so we can stop finding ourselves in this situation time and time again. Our community deserves leaders who are committed to honesty, integrity, and accountability. The decisions made by the board were definitely concerning. I think this is like incredible. I've never been more proud of the community that I'm part of. And we need to keep working together to move forward. I think that you need to let the voters make the choice to pierce the cap. The community who it kind of feels like you haven't had much faith in, let them come together, work together. And I understand anybody's going to be fighting for their own. But as many people have said before, we're fighting for Sachem as a whole, not just our own schools, because any decisions that are made abruptly now, again, are only just a short-term Band-Aid. So yes, maybe redistricting and big decisions are going to have to be made that are not easy, but they need to be done to get us out of this situation and better moving forward.
Thank you, Ms. Dempsey. Jim Kiernan.
Good evening. Excuse the voice. I have a little laryngitis. Good evening, President Scavo, Superintendent Trombetta, members of the board and cabinet. I came here tonight with a lot to say. You've taken everything away from me tonight to say.
That doesn't happen
So
a
I'm
lot,
really,
Jim. Yeah.
I'm
It
really,
doesn't-
I'm really going to just spend this couple of seconds saying thank you. Thank you. We all came together tonight for two reasons. One, to make sure that that school option was off the table, which you guys did. And two, to make sure that you put together a policy or something like that policy that gave us a voice, gave the community a voice when you do choose or have to close a school. So again, all of this now I'm going to take home and shred, and thank you again.
Thanks, Jim. Jillian Redende.
Good evening. So I just have like some bullet points and a question that somebody wanted me to relay, but I want to say thank you as well to the board and to the administrators. I want to say thank you for using Merrimack as a bargaining chip with the state to kind of get more money from them. You up the ante. Way to go. I want to say thank you for using money to settle a lawsuit that you had against the district. That is on the bulletin of agendas if you want to go look for it, because we got to do our own research. I want to say thank you for wanting us to think long term, but you failed to. I want to say thank you for appointing and creating a new position for your alternative high school without community knowing, or I'm sure that comes with a bonus or a raise or some kind of financial thing, because nobody does anything for free anymore in this world. I want to say thank you for not considering the ramifications of closing any school for student whose special needs don't show on the outside. They don't have a wheelchair or crutches or anything else. I want to say thank you for having the audacity, that's right, audacity, big word, for rescinding a policy that's been on here since 1998. And Mr. Lawyer, who came to our PTA meeting yesterday, you said you've been
To
on
be
this
fair, but
board for
hold
so
on.
long.
We're not gonna direct comments to the board. Direct comments to me.
Why?
You're not gonna direct comments to an individual board member. We're not gonna make this a hostile environment.
It's not. I'm
just
Puerto
say
Rican. I'm very fiery.
Just say what you have to say, okay? And let's move on.
Okay,
Right.
so I want
Thank
to
you.
thank the board for rescinding something that's been
Thank you.
1998. I want to say thank you to my colleagues and to the parents that showed up today, because it just shows what we are Sachem are about and not them. We are Sachem. Do you understand that? And just remember, my colleagues, when a student does something that's so egregious that it breaks district rules, we expel them from the school district, do we not? Because it's so egregious we can't keep them. We have to think the same way when the board goes up for re-election and their positions are up to expel them. And thank you for this lovely evening.
Thank you for coming out. Nicole Diaz.
Thank you all for calling this meeting today. We understand that these decisions are difficult. However, at the end of last school year's budget discussions, the district did indicate that redistricting and potential school closures would be a phased process over coming years. Our community asks that the district honor that plan and begin a thoughtful redistricting process as soon as possible. There are many factors to consider when closing an elementary school so close to the start of next school year, which thankfully you've decided not to do. Whatever school that is decided to be, please take into consideration the social and emotional impact that will have on multiple transitions for children. You can't open a school, close a school, open a school. Our priority must be the children. While the decision to close an elementary school may be happening, or a middle school, or whatever school that is, it's going to directly impact the children of this school district. I stand here today for those that don't have a voice or haven't been able to come here. As a parent, a community member, a Sachem former student, and an educator, I don't want to see any child negatively impacted. Every budget decision, whether closing a building, cutting staff, or reducing programs, is going to impact 11,000 children in Sachem schools some way. We understand that there are difficult financial times ahead, and we're in them now, but we have to be creative, think bigger, and plan long term, and minimize the impact on students as much as possible. My final message is for the Sachem community, both those here tonight and those that are at home. You have to come out and vote. Your vote is powerful, and it is key to the securing a positive educational future for our children. No vote is a vote no. Thank you.
Thank you. Kristen Watson.
Hi here. Oh, am I doing this right? Can you hear me? Okay. All right. I would just like to say thank you very, very much again. And thank you for everybody who came to Merrimack yesterday. Just as I stated yesterday, I don't have emotional connection to an individual school of Sachem. My kids were Grundy. I chose to move my children. over to Merrimack. Both schools are amazing. Both have given my kids so much. When we first moved to Sachem, both me and my husband are from a small town, so we moved to this large district. We were nervous, right? It was 2010. My youngest was a year old. Then he was starting school. There were school closures happening. My mother was like, "You got to get out of Sachem. You're not sending my grandkids there. It's too big, blah, blah, blah." I'm like, no, it's okay. Let's see how this goes. My oldest son started, then the other ones, they maybe had at most 22, 23 kids in the classroom. So putting aside the disadvantages of such a big district, them having such small class sizes has been one of the major factors on why I continue to raise my kids in Sachem, and why when we did move, we decided to buy another home in Sachem and not outside of Sachem. I was a huge advocate last year for piercing the tax gap on the social media. And I was actually kicked off some of the social forums for advocating to pierce the tax gap. I understand when it was put into effect, it was a much different, economic environment. I know who put the tax cap in place. I advise the community to do their homework, on why we should pierce the tax cap. Do I agree that it should have been at that number? Probably not, especially, there are word of mouth on who was for and who was against. So I will continue to advocate on social media to pass a proposed budget if you give us that equal respect of giving us transparency on what the plan is for a sustainable, normal life for our kids. Again, I've been in Sachem 10 years ago. The schools were closing. I continue to say, we're here again. I have a kindergartner now. In 10 years, is he going to have to go through this? Am I going to have to worry about what high school? Is my son going to switch high schools? Because am I going to go, I'm Merrimack. Is he going to be Grundy? And then is going to switch high schools? Am I going to have kids that are graduating from two different sides of the district?
You have
these are
20
things-
seconds remaining.
Sorry. I will do my part, and I will advise the rest of the community to do theirs, as long as I see there's concrete evidence on redistricting and all that stuff. Sorry, I get nervous, but thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Watson. Allison Kester.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. Hi.
Hi, I am a special education teacher, so I know what it is. Can you hear me on this? I know what it is to be a professional, and I know what it is to make really hard decisions. I was there yesterday. I don't know if you remember speaking with me. This all caused such chaos for the community, and everybody's here, which is wonderful. But we need to be proactive, not reactive. So all these changes that keep making, yes, we're making them on the fly. Okay, let's take this policy away because there's a safety net. Let's put it back because people are flipping out. It's not okay. And I know what it is to be a professional. I know what it is to make decisions. I'm a special ed teacher. I work in Wyandanch District. It's very challenging. I've been there for 15 years. We have to do better, and we need to find protocol. Isn't there a protocol that we have to go by? And taking something away from us, yes, you guys solved it. I appreciate that. That's awesome. Thank you. But what happens when we do have to close another school? It's going to eventually happen, correct?
Yes.
I mean, numbers are all over the place. So where's the protocol? This divide between us, it's not working. We see that, right? Everyone sees that. It's not working. We all need to work together. I wasn't going to make this personal, but hearing everyone's stories, and you did answer a lot of my questions, I'm going to make it a little personal. I have 3 children. I have twins that are at Merrimack. They just moved there about 2 months ago because my son needed ICT setting, and they didn't offer that at Waverly. So we had to transfer him over, and I had a fight to move my daughter Savannah over as well, because there's a bond when you have twins. They can't go without each other. I don't know if you remember any of my letters, but you probably know who I am now. Here I am. Woo! I am not shy. But we have to fight, and we have to fight for things that are right. If you were in our position, you have to understand where we're coming from. I understand where you're coming from, but there needs to be a protocol. And bring it back to my twins. Special ed is so serious. It's not a joke. These children, whether they're special ed or not, they have feelings. And uprooting my child from Waverly to Merrimack, oh, sorry, your school's closing. My twins are hysterical over it. It's wrong. No one should feel that. Parents shouldn't feel that. The uncertainty needs to stop, and we all need to work together. So I just want to say that. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Okay, Allison, no other visitors? Okay. Brings us to item 4, personnel items. We have a leave of absence, support service personnel. Any motion, please? Laura, second by Mike Cernia. Questions and discussions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Board discussions? Did you have something?
I was going to have a discussion about 7,800.
Well,
So now we continue with that discussion?
No.
And
You
then
had
what else?
mentioned it's been put back, so there's no
Yeah,
need for
that's what
discussion.
I'm saying. So we
But-
can't.
But the thing is, you had a question earlier with me about, you had sent several letters to the Board of Education.
Yes.
Regarding legislation.
Yes, my apologies. When we met with the elected officials last week, we had a positive response and a really productive meeting. Drafted letters with the bullet points of what was discussed, the concerns in the community, the budget issues we have, things that we need to advocate for in the community to lessen the impact of everything financially that's going on with us. And they asked us to send them a letter. So what I did was each point I broke down and created 4 different letters. One was for bullet aid to save Merrimack, so I guess we can ditch that for now.
No, I would still put it in.
Still put it in? Okay. Another was this non-mandated, the mandated unfunded mandates in special education. We gave them a couple of scenarios as well, and there was a light bulb. A lot of our elected officials don't understand, not Doug, but some of them don't understand what we face as a school district with the unfunded mandates. So we asked for intervention with that. The
Stephanie,
TAN.
excuse me one second.
Yes.
Just to the community, when you tell us that you want us to tell you what to do, this is what is going on. Stephanie is telling you how to advocate. Stephanie is telling you about us advocating for you. Stephanie is telling you about us doing the job that you elected us to do. Yet half of you are leaving.
She has a floor. Let's let her finish. And
And I get it. I'm saying this too, so that we can have it on record, so that people who want to go back and watch, because I understand they have kids at home and all that. So that's okay. But the tax anticipation notes, and sorry, my brain is fried from this, so I'm just giving in advance why I'm like digging. The tax anticipation note, Meredith had brought up, why isn't there a state fund? The elected officials were like, why isn't there a state fund? They gave us the pros and the cons, one being big banks will fight against this. So as a community, we need to come together and say, why are we using tax dollars to pay for interest on loans? Because you guys in the state cannot align your budget to the school district's budget timeline. Why are we borrowing money from ourselves, basically, and then a bank is making money off of our school district? I never looked at it that way. And to Rob's point, we can't even find a cheaper credit union. Like this is beyond. And our elected officials agreed. They said it's going to be a tough fight, but they said they try to fight it for us. And I forgot the last one. Meredith, what was the last one we were working on?
UPK.
UPK. We get 3.1 million, right? 3.1 million from the state. We're only allowed to use 2.1 million of that because we have space constraints, which I know doesn't really make sense, but if you listen to all these discussions in the past, you'd know why that was a thing. And because we do not get fully funded the $6,000 tuition that UPK charges Sachem, the company that provides our UPK, we only get $5,400. There's a $600 gap that costs this district $250,000 out of our general fund that comes out of like clubs, sports, whatever else, all the things that we listed tonight to cut, which is not there, but all the things that we listed to cut, and we're sending $1 million back to the state because we can't use it. It's restricted. Lift that restriction. Give us at least the $250,000. Give us the full tuition of each child. None of that makes sense. And our elected officials offered to help us with this, and we drafted some letters to send. There's also, and this is a committee update, I guess, but there's going to be a call to action for the community. We just have to get through all of this first, and we will do steps on social media, contacting elected officials, asking the community to help us be a voice for Sachem and get these things rectified.
Yeah. Just so just for clarification, right now, $5,400 allocation is the same allocation that was set back in 2006, 2007. Costs have gone up. You know, the cost of educating these children have gone up. We're asking, as we move forward, is that they increase that allocation and give us some flexibility with that. So if you look at the 18-year period and you look at the $600, that's $33 a year. Yeah, it's not a lot to ask for. This year, we were able to negotiate with Scope, okay, and we were able to get them to do it in one more year at $5,400. But next year, they already said to us they can't do it at $5,400. So we need to get this, something changed up in Albany.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, next year we're going to have to find $250,000 in our budget
While we're sending back $1 million,
While we're
which
sending back
doesn't
$1
make
million,
any
yes.
any sense whatsoever.
So I guess the question is that the board received letters, okay, that Stephanie drafted so wonderfully. I mean, they were well written. Is everybody okay with us using those letters and sending them up to Albany and sending them to our elected officials? Is that's what you're asking for?
Well, the next step, it has to go to
Well, it has to go to
other people that were part of
our
the
bargaining units, and
our bargaining
PTA.
units,
Yeah.
our PTA, and our the rest of the legislative committee.
Yes.
So once those letters
Everybody's
get
okay
seen
with-
with
yeah.
input, then we would send them up to Albany, and then it would start our legislative committee, basically social media
Mhm.
and advocacy campaign that we're planning on starting.
All right, so if the board is okay with the way the letters are written and the content in the letters, we're going to send them off to our bargaining units that partnered up with us on this, as well as our PTA, which also partnered with us. And then once we get their approval, then we start our advocacy with the state.
And so we'll still ask for bullet
All
aid
right? Anybody,
as well.
any changes or questions? All right, so there you go.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks. I forgot about it.
Okay. Vinny?
Yeah, just one comment about the TAN. So just because Michelle does a great job with our money, you're actually making interest this year because of interest rates, but it could be a concern as interest rates change, right? So, right. And also Nassau County doesn't do this. They do it? Okay, because that was from our legislators said they didn't. So I guess it's a statewide issue, right? Yeah. Okay. But short term, you're making money off of the money, right? Because of the way you're playing with or floating interest rates.
Yeah, for
Use-
this year because
right, for
interest
this year.
rates are high, but
Yep.
at times when interest rates are low.
That's when it's gonna
like
affect
back
us.
in 2022, I think interest rates at our financial institutions were like a 0.17%,
Right.
and the TAN was 2.25%. So
Right.
then you're paying millions
You're
of
paying
dollars
millions in interest. Yeah.
and not making any
And not
back.
making anything. Yep. Got it. Thanks.
Just about the legislative. So there's going to be a call to action. We do ask all of you to get involved. And if you have any questions, our board emails are always open. You guys have found them this week. So I'm sure you all know where they are. But also our legislators were telling us that the same note, the same email, when they start seeing it, they disregard it. So if you guys can be as passionate and heartfelt in sending them some information, each of you your own information, how it impacts you and your family, because it impacts each one of us and it does so differently. But I think we had a great forum with them. I mean, we don't usually, our local people are usually really good, and it's not really them that we always have to worry about, but they really did listen. And I think that we had a really great productive meeting. And I would welcome anyone that has any questions to ask us, because it will help. And if you want to run for the board, please.
One more thing, Rob, which I can't neglect to say. One of the committee chairpersons, Dana Playton, and she went up to Albany with these concerns and has been there the past week advocating for Sachem. And this is a lot of the background stuff. And forgive me, forgive us. Sometimes it's embarrassing to put this stuff totally out there, because you don't want to look like you're patting yourself on the back for doing your job. So you guys didn't know we were having a legislative forum the next day. It was planned. Well, you knew because we announced it in the board meeting, but we're not tooting our horn because we met with elected officials. We are trying to advocate and be your voice. And sometimes we're busy doing that we're not sharing everything with you guys. And understand, like right now, Dana would be in the audience, but she's upstate advocating for Sachem. So, there's a lot of moving parts with this stuff that we don't want to look like we're Brachiosaurus Rexes, but we're, when I say my kids, but you also don't want to, I don't want you to think we're not doing anything either. We're really, really trying. And the timing of that meeting, I thought was a mistake, but it wound up being such a blessing, because all of us were hurting when we were talking to the electeds, and the electeds saw that and they wanted to genuinely help. So hopefully that's where this is all going.
Okay. There's no other public comment. I need a motion to go into exec session, discuss a incident involving one of our members of our staff. Benny Reynolds, second by Stephanie. All in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Have a good evening. Our next meeting is scheduled for next week, March 12th, Wednesday in the boardroom.